Hello everyone, I am Mrs. Ashwini Oak, a physics teacher from Ferguson College, Pune. In the last lecture of wave optics, we have discussed Huygens theory and Huygens principle. The other topics of the chapter we are going to discuss in this lecture with the help of PowerPoint presentation. We studied Huygens principle in the last lecture. Now using Huygens principle, we are going to construct a spherical wavefront. So let us study the construction of spherical wavefront on the basis of Huygens principle. We consider a point source of light in the given medium. It emits light waves in all directions. And we get a wavefront which is a spherical wavefront AB. So AB is the primary wavefront at time t is equal to 0. Now according to Huygens principle, every point on this wavefront acts as the secondary source of light and it emits the waves which are called as secondary wavelets, and as they are point sources, they emit secondary wavelets which are nothing but spherical wavefronts or spherical wavelets. So let us consider a point on the wavefront which is acting as secondary source of light. We consider some other points on the wavefront which act as. If the speed of light in the given medium is v, then the waves emitted by all these sources will cover distance equal to v into t in time t. And therefore, to draw the spherical wavefronts emitted by different sources, we consider these sources as the centers and radius equal to Vt, and we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by all these sources. So let us consider the first point source, which is the first point of the wavefront. If we draw the spherical wavefront emitted by this point source, then we take this point source as the center and some distance, that is about 2 to 3 centimeter distance in your compass, and draw the spherical wavelet. According to Huygens principle, only forward direction of the wave is effective and backward direction is ineffective. So we have drawn the hemisphere emitted by the point source. We consider the second point source, the wavelet emitted by the second point source, which will be again in the form of hemisphere, and the radius of the hemisphere is equal to Vt after time t. So we take this point as the center and the same radius, that is the same distance in your compass as previous, we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by the second point source. Again, considering the third point as the center and the same radius Vt or the same distance in your compass, we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by the third point source. Likewise, we draw the spherical wavelets emitted by all other secondary sources. All these secondary wavelets are having the radius equal to Vt, and as they are emitted by secondary sources, they are called as secondary wavelets. Now, if we draw the envelope covering all these secondary wavelets, then this envelope or the surface which includes all these secondary wavelets is nothing but the new wavefront at time capital T. So to draw the new wavefront, we take this point source, primary source, as our center and the radius equal to the distance from the point source to the secondary wavelet. This distance you have to consider in your compass, and taking this point source as the center, we draw the spherical wavefront, which is our new wavefront A dash B dash at time capital T. So AB was the old wavefront or the primary wavefront, and by using Huygens principle, we constructed the new spherical wavefront A dash B dash at time capital T. Now let us understand the construction of plane wavefront on the basis of Huygens principle. We consider a plane wavefront AB at time t is equal to 0. How do we get a plane wavefront? The spherical wavefront has traveled a very large distance away from the source, and the part of spherical wavefront is appearing as a plane wavefront. So AB is a plane wavefront at time t is equal to 0. Now, according to Huygens principle, every point on this wavefront acts as the secondary source of light. So we consider different points on the wavefront which are acting as the secondary sources. Now all these sources will emit the light waves in the given medium in all directions. If the speed of light in the given medium is v, then after time t, the waves emitted by all these sources will cover equal distance equal to Vt. And therefore, taking the first point as the center and Vt as a radius, we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by the first point source. So this is the spherical wavelet emitted by the first point source. We are considering this point as the center, and about 2 to 3 centimeter distance in your compass, you can draw the spherical wavelet. Now consider the second point as the source, and taking the same distance in your compass, we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by the second point source. Again, we can take third and fourth point as the centers, and the same distance in your compass, draw the spherical wavelets emitted by them. So all these are having the same radius, which is equal to Vt, and as they are emitted by secondary sources, they are called as secondary wavelets. Now, if we draw the tangent to all these secondary wavelets, this tangent will give us the new wavefront A dash B dash at time t is equal to capital T. So A dash B dash is the new wavefront at time t. AB was old wavefront, and by using Huygens principle, we constructed a new wavefront A dash B dash at time t. The construction of spherical and plane wavefront can be asked in exam for 2 marks.
When light waves are incident on an interface of two transparent media, light gets partially refracted and partially reflected. Using the Huygens principle, we can derive the laws of refraction and reflection and show that these laws are consistent with the wave nature of light.
Let us understand reflection of light at a plane surface. We have already studied reflection of light in standard 11 using ray nature of light. Now here we are using the wave nature of light, and we are going to study the reflection of light, that is reflection of plane wavefront at a plane surface. We derive the laws of reflection, and we will show that these laws are consistent with the wave nature of light. So we consider the plane reflecting surface Mn. The plane wavefront AB is incident on the reflecting surface. If we draw perpendicular to the reflecting surface at point A, then PA is the perpendicular drawn or normal drawn to the reflecting surface at point A. Always the direction of propagation of light is perpendicular to the wavefront. So we can draw large number of perpendiculars or normals to these wavefront, showing the direction of propagation of light. But we consider two rays at point A and B which show the direction of propagation of light. So RA and QB are the rays of light and they are perpendicular to the wavefront AB and they show the direction of propagation of light in the given medium. The angle between the incident ray RA and the normal PA is angle of incidence I. Now we assume that at time t is equal to 0, only point A of the wavefront touches the reflecting surface and point B of the wavefront will touch the reflecting surface after time t is equal to capital T. So at time t is equal to 0, only point A is on the surface and point B will meet the reflecting surface after time capital T. All the other points along AB will reach the reflecting surface successively between time t is equal to 0 to time t is equal to capital T. And once they reach the reflecting surface, they will act as secondary sources of light and they will emit the light waves back into the same medium. As all these are point sources, they will emit the light waves in the form of spherical wavelets. As the point A is at time t is equal to 0, point A has started emitting the light waves and after time capital T, the wavelet emitted by point A will cover distance which is equal to Vt, where V is the speed of the light in the given medium. And in the same time capital T, point B will cover a distance equal to Vt and it reaches the reflecting surface at point C. So the distance BC is equal to Vt. All the other points between A and C, they will emit the spherical wavelets back into the medium, but radii of all these wavelets will decrease from Vt to 0 because at time t, point C has just touched the reflecting surface. So the radius of the wavelet emitted by point C is 0 at time t. But at time t, the wavelet emitted by point A will cover a distance equal to Vt. So we take point A as center and Vt as radius and we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by point A. Now Vt is equal to Bc and therefore taking point A as center and distance equal to BC in your compass, we draw the spherical wavelet emitted by point A, which is having the same radius equal to Vt. So after time t, the radius of wavelet emitted by point A is Vt. After time t, the radius of the wavelet emitted by point C is 0. And all the other points between A and C will emit the wavelets which have the radius which gradually decrease from Vt to 0. So all these wavelets emitted by different points will have the radii in decreasing order. And therefore, if we want to draw the reflected wavefront, we have to draw the reflected wavefront from point C, which cover all these secondary wavelets or which envelopes all the secondary wavelets emitted by different points between A and C. So the envelope which is drawn to cover all the secondary wavelets is nothing but the reflected wavefront. So CE represents the reflected wavefront. AB is the incident wavefront and gets reflected along CE. But the direction of propagation of light is always perpendicular to the wavefront. So if we draw perpendicular to this reflected wavefront CE, we get the direction of propagation of light, which is the ray of light, AE. So RA is the incident ray of light which gets reflected along AE. So here we have AE is equal to BC is equal to VT. The angle between the reflected ray AE and the normal is angle of reflection R. Similarly, this QC gets reflected along CF. Now let us prove the laws of reflection. Now we have RA perpendicular to AB and also PA perpendicular to AC, and therefore the angle BAC is equal to I, and this is called as angle of incidence for the incident wavefront. So angle of incidence for the incident wavefront is the angle between the incident wavefront and the reflecting surface. Similarly, CE is perpendicular to AE and PA is perpendicular to AC, and therefore angle ACE is equal to R, which is the angle of reflection for the reflected wavefront. So angle of reflection is the angle between the reflected wavefront and the reflecting surface for the wavefront. Now we have two right angle triangles with us, triangle ABC and triangle AEC. In triangle ABC and AEC, side AC is common, which is hypotenuse of the two triangles. So hypotenuse AC is common. Then side BC is equal to side AE, which is equal to VT. And therefore, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle AEC by hypotenuse side theorem. As two triangles are congruent, their corresponding angles are also congruent, and therefore angle BAC is congruent to triangle ACE. These are corresponding angles of congruent triangles. Now angle BAC is nothing but equal to I, angle ACE is nothing but equal to R. So we can write I is equal to R, which is the law of reflection. And also from the diagram, we can see that incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal at the point of incidence lie in the same plane, which is the other law of reflection. So using wave nature of light and Huygens principle, we can prove the laws of reflection. Also, we can see from the diagram that AB is the length of the incident wavefront and CE is the length of the reflected wavefront. As these are corresponding sides of congruent triangles, they are equal. So we can say that AB is equal to CE, or the length of incident wavefront is equal to the length of the reflected wavefront. So we can say that if AB is any linear object, then size of this object after reflection, or the reflecting image will have the same size as that of the object. Now let us understand how the light wave is represented by using equation. This is a light wave, which is an electromagnetic wave. The light wave is propagating along x-axis and the electric field is vibrating along z plane, or it is oscillating in all directions in YZ plane, and corresponding magnetic field is perpendicular to that electric field. Now such type of wave where electric field vibrates in all directions in a given plane which is perpendicular to the direction of propagation of wave is called as unpolarized light wave. But for this wave, how do we write the intensity of the wave? So generally, the light wave is expressed in terms of its electric field vector. So the magnitude of electric field of a light wave is written as E is equal to E naught sine kx minus omega t, where E is the magnitude of electric field, E naught is the amplitude of that electric field or amplitude of the wave. Sine kx minus omega t, where k is called as wave vector or propagation constant. It is equal to 2 pi upon lambda, where lambda is the wavelength of the wave. As the wave is propagating along x-axis, it is k into x minus omega t, where omega is called as angular frequency and t is the time taken. For this type of wave, the intensity of wave is always directly proportional to the square of amplitude. The amplitude of wave is E naught, and therefore intensity of this light wave is directly proportional to E naught square. Now let us see another phenomenon of light, which is interference of light. But before going to interference of light, let us understand what is interference. And interference can take place in all types of waves. Interference takes place when the waves interact with each other. These interactions are governed by principle of superposition of waves. So according to principle of superposition of waves, when two or more waves overlap, the resultant displacement of a particle of the medium at a given point is the vector sum of displacements of the particle produced by individual waves, as if each wave is the only one which is present. Let us understand this with the help of an example. We are considering two waves which are traveling through the medium. These two waves are transverse waves and they are represented by blue and green color. When they are traveling through medium, they overlap at different points or they interact with each other at different points. But each wave has produced its own displacement. So we consider one point where the displacement of blue color wave is shown by blue colored arrow and displacement of green color wave is shown by green colored arrow. These two waves interact with each other and the resultant displacement at this point is the vector sum of the individual displacement of the waves, and therefore the resultant displacement is of the particle at that point is represented by brown colored arrow. So this is the superposition principle, and this brown color displacement is the vector sum of the individual displacements of two waves. Now let us understand this with two more examples. Consider the waves traveling through the medium. These two waves are having the same amplitude, the same wavelength, and in the first case they are in phase. That means the crest of one wave overlaps with the crest of the other and the trough of one wave overlaps with the trough of the other. When these two waves overlap, what happens? The resultant displacement at that point is vector sum of the individual displacements of the wave. So if we consider this point, the vector sum of these two displacements is the displacement which is shown in the third diagram. As the two amplitudes are same, the resultant amplitude will be twice the amplitude of individual waves. This happens in the case of crest as well as trough. When two troughs overlap with each other, the resultant displacement is maximum. This happens when the two waves are in phase with each other. Now, consider an example where two waves traveling through the medium have same amplitude, they have same wavelength, but they are out of phase by 180 degree. That means the crest of one wave overlaps with the trough of the other. As their amplitudes are same, the vector sum of these two displacement will be equal to 0, and therefore after overlapping crest and trough, the resultant displacement at that point will be the vector sum, which is equal to 0. So we can say that at some places where the waves overlap in phase, the resultant displacement is maximum. At some other places where the waves overlap out of phase, the resultant displacement is minimum. And in this case, as the amplitudes are same, the resultant displacement is 0. As the intensity of wave is directly proportional to the square of amplitude, so where the waves overlap in phase, the intensity of the wave is maximum, and where the waves interact out of phase, the intensity of the wave is minimum. This modification in the intensity of wave due to superposition of waves is called as interference of waves. Now, interference can be of two types: constructive interference and destructive interference. When the crest of one wave overlaps with crest of other, the resultant displacement at that point is maximum, resultant amplitude is maximum, and the intensity of the wave at that point is maximum. This type of interference is called as constructive interference. When the crest of the wave overlaps with the trough of the other, then the resultant displacement at that point is minimum, resultant amplitude is minimum, and intensity at that point is also minimum. And this type of interference is called as destructive interference. In this lecture, we have discussed about the construction of spherical and plane wavefront using Huygens principle. We have discussed the reflection of plane wavefront at a plane reflecting surface, and we have started with phenomenon of interference of light. The details of interference we will study in our next lecture. Till then, you revise the topics from your textbook. Thank you.